everybody, I'm Dr. Melinda Freckleton with Firestar Veterinary Services, and tonight we're going to talk about pinworms. I have seen pinworms on 2 different farms just today, so it's clearly on my mind. I'm going to separately, with this post, after the live portion is done, for those of you who are watching live, I'm going to add a video of a female pinworm to the post and some photos of some of the things I'm going to talk about. So make sure if you're watching the live version of this that you circle back and you take a look at those things, because they'll make a lot of what I'm about to say much more clear. So pinworms, it is one of those subjects that everybody's got an opinion about. Pinworms are not super common in horses, so this is kind of an interesting and fun day that I got to see signs of it in 2 different farms. In my experience, it's typically this time of year that I see them roughly. I feel like it's usually hot outside, but I don't think that they have a seasonal pattern per se, and I should look that up, but I didn't. In any case, pinworms have an interesting life cycle and interesting signs and symptoms in your horse. So, hi Beth. With pinworms, you typically see tail scratching if you're gonna see any symptom at all. But on the other hand, if you have tail scratching, it does not mean you have pinworms. Horses rubbing their butts and scratching their tails can be from such a variety of things. Anything from dry skin in that dock, to ticks biting their tail, their anus, down between their hind legs into the groin, mammary, or sheath region. Occasionally, well, definitely, frequently, coolicoides, which is a hypersensitivity to little no-see-ums, can cause tail itching. Just such a variety of things biting back there. So pinworms are an important thing to think about and look for when your horse is scratching their butt and tail, but they are not the first thing you should think of. In our region, ticks and coolicoides are the first things you should think of. Ticks being obvious, you know what those are. Coolicoides are little no-see-um midges, sort of like tiny miniature mosquitoes, which entomologists and other experts on bugs are just like spinning at me describing them that way, but that's the way that most of us who don't have an appreciation of them would see them, and those are the most common reasons for itchy butts. But once in a while, your problem is actually pinworms. So your horse is scratching their tail, or you just learned that somebody else in the barn has pinworms. What do? First of all, of course, don't panic. These are parasites, and very few parasite problems are fatal. Very few. We've pretty much eliminated the ones that are. Itchy butts, not fatal. But they're pesky and inconvenient and problematic. So, first thing you want to do is lift that horse's tail and look for the pinworm plaques. As I said before, I'm going to post photos of that when I'm done with this so that you can see what that looks like. But it's little, usually below the anus and right around its little rim and streaking down from it. You get little areas of yellow or white or sometimes gray or even kind of translucent little stuff stuck there. Kind of flakes off easily if you were to touch it. Please don't do it that way. So that combined with an itchy butt is the best way to diagnose them. If we're not sure about whether the thing we're looking at is one of those plaques or not, first of all, take a picture of it, send it to me or your regular veterinarian, and see if that's what you have. If we're still not sure by looking at it, which even sometimes us vets aren't 100% sure, then we can do a tape test. You take some clear tape, scotch tape or packing tape, touch it to that area, and then stick it to itself in a flat, smooth way. Or if you happen to be so sciencey that you have one, you can stick it to a microscope slide, and then we can look at it and tell you if that's what you have. Because what that little plaque is the pinworm eggs glued onto your horse's butt with a fluid that the pinworm manufactured specifically to make your horse itchy. Because their strategy is to then have the horse rub their butt all over everything in the environment, which of course they do, and by doing so, they distribute those eggs everywhere. And they don't need grass for transmission, so the next horse whose mouth touches them, or the same horse, gets reinfected with those eggs. So they can be a little pesky once they're in the environment. It can take just a little while to eliminate them from your farm again. Okay, so now we've diagnosed that maybe it really is pinworms that are making your horse's butt itchy. What do we do about that? How much should we panic? And oh, wait a minute, you know some human, or you yourself as a human once had pinworms. So people pinworms are from people. You're not going to get pinworms from your horse. They're only going to spread those to other equids. But you certainly can be a fomite, meaning an object that doesn't get infected but carries them from place to place. And that's part of why I said, don't touch those little flakes at the anus if you think that that's what your horse might have. So now that we've decided that it really is pinworms, what you want to do now is get a set of latex or non-latex exam gloves and some baby wipes, or some nice damp soapy paper towels, but not so much that they're going to drip, so that they're damp the way that your baby wet wipes would be. And clean them off carefully with that. Grab your paper towel or wet wipe, take your glove off over it, put it in the trash, wash your hands. If you want to be a real perfectionist, or your horse has a lot of them, do this in a location that they're not going to spread those eggs around where other horses are going to put their mouth. So either out of your normal equine traffic flow, or in the wash stall and then wash it down really well, but someplace like that. And then you're going to have to stay with that. Keep cleaning that butt every day. And then touch base with your veterinarian, because just the way we get antibiotic resistance in bacteria, we have very serious resistance to in these pinworms to common dewormers. So you're going to say, but Dr. Freckleton, this tube of ivermectin and these 12 other deworming tubes I have in my barn all say they kill pinworms. And they did when the FDA approved that label, which was sometime in the 80s, most likely. So that means that that isn't true anymore. Those labels don't get changed unless the drug company spends a lot of money with the FDA to jump through regulatory hoops and change it. That's not in their best interest to tell you that it doesn't work, right? They're not going to do that. And the FDA is a little busy with other things right now. So they're not changing those labels for the drug company. They don't do that generally anyway. So if you have that, I don't want to tell you the secret passcode to how to kill your pinworms, because I don't want people to go buy this dewormer and use it because their horse has an itchy butt. Because we're going to create more resistance that way. And there's only one dewormer left that fairly reliably kills this. We're going to have to go to even more extreme measures. If you start reading on Dr. Google, you're going to find things that tell you to smear dewormer around your horse's anus or in the anus. And we did think that that was true at one point. However, more recent science shows that's not going to kill the worm. So the way the dewormer is getting inside the worm to kill it is by mouth. The worm is attached to the lining of the horse's rectum just inside the anus, and they're getting their nutrition, she's getting her nutrition through the wall of the GI system, basically by sucking a little bit of blood from in there. So she has to get the dewormer out of your horse's bloodstream. She can bathe in it, she just can't take it by mouth. Just like so many things in our own environment, right? There's lots of things we can put on our bodies, but please don't drink the sunscreen, right? You can put it on you, but not in you. And so this is the case for dewormer if you are a pinworm. She can bathe in it, but she can't drink it. And we want her to drink it. So give the dewormer that is for a pinworm by mouth in your horse, even though Dr. Google may tell you otherwise. Okay, so let's see, we've talked about itchy butts and what's probably really causing it. We've talked about the pinworms. So now your horse has pinworms and he's turned out with 4 other horses owned by other people or owned by you. Should you go through and deworm all of them? And the answer to that is no, unless all of them have the itchy butt and plaques. Or the itchy butt or plaques in this situation. Because now your index of suspicion, the odds of your itchy butt horse of having pinworms just went way up when one of his friends has pinworms, right? So now that might change things and we might deworm that one too. But again, even if you know which dewormer I'm talking about, please don't run through and willy-nilly deworm everybody, because we want to save that dewormer only for the ones that really have it so that we don't create resistance. Okay, great. Now you have wiped your horse's butt diligently a time or 2 every day until those plaques didn't show up again, and you gave the correct dewormer at the correct dose as I instructed you to. Job done, right? Almost. Nothing's that easy on horses. So next step is, we know that before we got to the problem, your itchy butt horse spread some of those parasites through the environment. You could try to go through and clean every surface that horse could have put their butt on, but I don't recommend it. As much as I'm a clean freak and there are times I'm going to send you with a scrub brush to do some impossible job if you'll let me, this isn't one of them. It's just not going to happen on a practical and realistic basis. You could scrub some of the areas your horse is most likely to eat, right? You saw him rubbing his tail on that feed bin. Oh yeah, get the scrub brush out and give that one a really good wash with soap and water and rinse it well and put it back in service. But short of that example, no. But what you are gonna do is watch that horse and every other horse that shares the environment with him for another 3 to 6 weeks, but to see if you get more of them. And you might, very well. That doesn't mean your first treatment didn't work. And this is where things get complicated and tricky. It means that before you gave that dewormer, the dewormer killed the adult worms in the horse at that time. Now, the eggs that were in the environment that your horse ate a day or 2 later, they're still fair game. They're gonna grow up. So you're gonna repeat that process. Doing it correctly, it shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 cycles of that to get all the pinworms on your property gone. Easy for me to say. If it starts running through a big group, that's a lot of work that I just named right there. Just doing feed buckets if they have a chance to rub their tails on them, wiping their butts once or twice a day, ideally twice to get all those crusts off, and deworming them every 3 to 6 weeks as more show up. That's a lot of work right there. And then checking all the butts of everybody that could have been in that same part of the farm, getting exposed to that same environment. And again, that's a lot. And remember that if you suddenly went, eureka, wait a minute, I might have those too. And I did this thing that might have carried them to another pasture. Now you probably have them in more than one paddock or pasture. So again, that might be a bigger job. Now you're watching all those butts. Make sure as you do that you are not the human fomite, the inanimate object that carries things from one place to another and spreads the infection. When you're checking those butts, you want to make sure that you are taking wet wipes to your hands or washing hands between horses. And yes, I do know exactly what a headache that is. This is my life. But you want to be really careful not to carry them from horse to horse. And so no small task, but very doable. Many people have eliminated pinworms from their farm, and including me. They've been here periodically. And then every once in a while you may have a new flare-up, but by the time you do, you're going to catch it really fast and put it out quickly. Certain horses, just like everything else, are more susceptible than others. So on my own farm, I had a tiny outbreak, I want to say like 5 years ago, where we had 2 or 3 horses in different fields have the problem, and only one of those horses has had a recurrence. and not frequently. So I don't know that there's research talking about that individual susceptibility, but I've seen that pattern at a couple different places, and it would make sense because it's true of most other parasites. If you have questions, put them in this post when I get it up. Nobody's put any in the feed, but jump on quick if you have a question you want me to address right now. But otherwise, I will watch for questions, and I'll get those pictures up soon so that if you too are having pinworm problems, you can have a better understanding. So this is Dr. Melinda Freckleton with Firestar Veterinary Services, wishing you and your horses a happy, healthy